So more people have joined the country's unemployment ranks. South Africa's official jobless rate has risen to 35.3%. It translates to 7.9 job seekers who cannot find work. Now, the figures are a measure of the labour force between October and December last year. The expanded jobless rate, which includes discouraged workers not actively seeking employment, has now risen to 46.2%. Under this definition, 12.5 million people are out of work. The weaknesses in the labour market have worsened because of the pandemic. I've got Kanakana Mudzanani, who joins me now from the South African Youth Economic Council to talk through these numbers. I mean, it was very important for us to focus on youth, particularly because of the staggering numbers that we are seeing. I mean, your thoughts on today's data and whether you feel enough has been done to address the plight of young people who just can't enter the job market.
And thank you so much for having us as a council. Key takeaways from the report that has been produced by Stats SA, right? Between the third quarter and the fourth quarter, we've lost over 270,000 jobs in the country. But besides that, we saw or witnessed the reaffirmation that youth unemployment sits the extended definition at 70%. But what is very critical to note is the fact that amongst young graduates, the unemployment rate sits below 12%. What am I trying to get at that? Firstly, we have not done enough to address the question of youth unemployment simply because young South Africans today are still unable to access institutions of higher learning. And as per the report, there is a clear track record that people with post-school qualifications are much more employable than those who are not. So for as long as government continues to list higher education as a cost and not as a social investment, we have not done anything to address the unemployment question. But not only that, we have failed to support startups or SMMEs owned by young South Africans. Why do I say so? Track record or figures produced by those who do research will tell you that small medium enterprises do not go beyond 24 months in terms of operation, and that is simply because they are not supported adequately. What needs to happen, or how can government support youth-owned SMMEs or SMMEs in general? Because we've seen that in developing or emerging economies, SMMEs are responsible for job creation. The government must create a legal framework that is going to enable it, as the largest procurer of goods and services, to only buy goods and services that are manufactured domestically. And that way we are going to be giving money to the people, or putting money back to the pocket of the people, and you can be rest assured that is how we are going to enable SMMEs to create mass job opportunities for our people, particularly young South Africans.
Kanakana, we have a lot of investments, summits and conferences about various issues in the country, but we've never seen anything established to address the plight of young people in particular. I'm talking about a jobs fund for youth, for example, or a summit to talk about the youth unemployment crisis. Your thoughts on that, in that you've just mentioned very briefly that there's just not enough being done by government?
The problem is not being addressed, or it's not being confronted. We are not going to solve over 70% youth unemployment through an investment conference or through a talk show. We are going to solve that crisis by firstly admitting that we need a new social compact where private players agree fundamentally that it cannot be just to concentrate over 90% of the wealth amongst 10% of the population. They need to come into agreement with the fact that more work needs to be done to ensure that resources are redistributed equally to young South Africans. They need to allow government, or they need to force the government to make frameworks that are going to enable young South Africans, particularly black ones, to actively participate in the economy. The question, however, lies in the how part of it, right? We've got to admit, all of us, firstly, that as it stands today, the mining sector is a huge player or a huge contributor into the economy. But as it stands, no one has done anything to compel the mining sector to create jobs that are in alignment with the amount of money that is generated.
What you're saying there could argue that we have created corporate taxes incentives, we've created employment incentives that corporates are exposed to and could use to their disposal to hire young people.
You know, a mining right only lasts for a certain period. Government, through legal framework, must say we are not going to extend or renew your mining right if you do not give us a certain figure of the amount of young South Africans you have employed. Government has not done that. Corporate tax globally will never determine the amount of jobs you can create as an economy. Even the largest hub of capitalism, which is the United States of America, differs because they had the largest corporate tax in the world, and the unemployment rate was just sitting at 4%. And immediately when they drop it by half of that in 2017, the unemployment rate actually skyrockets or doubles. So there is no correlation between reducing corporate tax and job creation. The government must take initiative in forcing the private sector through legislation to create jobs. We must be deliberate in our attempts to create jobs in this country. And we must not reduce the cost of the agenda of creating jobs to investment conference, investment summits, where the government will consistently come and beg private players to create jobs. The government must do its job. The government must enact legislation that is going to compel investors and business people in this country to create jobs.
Now, the wheels of transformation move very slowly in South Africa. So in the short term, what would you say the solution is, if any?
We need to agree that the social compact is not working. White people and black people need to come together, stand united, and understand that the unemployment crisis is ours to solve. We have a role to ensure that this economy is transformed. We have an Irish coffee system or scenario in South Africa where coffee is at the bottom and it's black people, and the white cream is obviously at the top echelon of this structure. What do I mean by this? You've got white NGOs on a daily basis that are opposing the agenda, the notion of transformation. With the preferential procurement regulations court ruling is a significant demarcation or resemblance of that. So white people need to come together with black South Africans, agree that we need a new social compact that is going to transfer and redistribute resources to all South Africans.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Kanakana Mudzanani, joining me there to speak about the plight of youth unemployment in the country.